very good morning to you, and welcome to the cuddy of the swamp duck. Cheers. It's a good job that I managed to get that windscreen wiper fitted at the end of last week, because since then we've had quite a lot of rain here in the UK. It's the first time for many months that we've had a period of persistent rain, and quite heavy at times. So much so that we've had a little bit of concern raised here at the marina that the water levels were rising quite quickly. So I had an email from the manager here at the marina to say that they'd been round and first of all, they'd checked the boats and the ropes, but they were asking people to make sure that their boats were properly tied up. And this boat has been tied to the mooring rings that are on the risers, so that when the water level goes up or down, then the ropes rise up. So that shouldn't be too much of a problem. So here you can see one of the risers and the ropes here. So what happens when the waters rise, then that will go upwards with the boat. So you don't have too many issues with that, unless it goes too high and goes further than the risers can go. I did notice when I got to the boat this morning just how much higher up the boat is. I was able to step straight from the pontoon to the boat, and it was on a level, whereas normally I have to sort of drop down onto the boat. So that's maybe a sign of things to come. Whilst the weather is a bit bad, I thought I would use this as an opportunity to talk through some of the basic things that you have to do when you first get a boat. Things that a lot of the viewers will already know, and it's like teaching them to suck eggs. But there are people who join this channel simply because they're interested in buying a boat or thinking of doing so in the future. So a few little tips for them. I didn't know very much about them when I first bought the boat, but the first thing I did was to make a trip to Fradley Junction to the Canal and River Trust office there, so I could actually talk in person to somebody who knew what they were talking about. So the first thing I had to do was to make sure that the boat was actually registered. And they did some searches and found that it actually was, and it's got a registration number, and it's quite an old one actually, because it doesn't have as many digits as the more modern ones do. So I'm glad that I was able to keep the original one. I did discover that the name of the boat, the Swamp Duck, wasn't its original name, so that hadn't actually been properly registered. So I registered it as the Swamp Duck with the registration number. And then I had to work out what kind of license I wanted to buy. And I wanted to buy initially just a 30-day license, because I wasn't taking the boat out of the marina very much, and it would have been a waste really to buy a full license at the time. And the marina was such that it wasn't part of the network, it was private waters, and therefore you didn't require to have a license to be there. That's something, if you book into a marina, then you do need to find that out. Most marinas will require you to have a environmental agency or a CRT license, but some don't. So because I did all that and went across to Fradley and talked to somebody, I soon learnt about the Canal and River Trust website. So I was able to register with that, and that is your key to finding out what's going on the waterways. And I have that, obviously I've got that to hand on my phone, so basically I can just get onto the Canal and River Trust website quite quickly. There we are, it's entitled My Trust. And on that you've got things like communication preferences, how you want to be contacted, your own contact details, all about your boat license. So you click on there and you can see that everything's been done properly. And then you come up to a thing called My Notices and Stoppages. And this is very important, and that's what I wanted to talk about on this video. When there was concern the other day that the water levels were rising in the marina, first of all I got a notification from the marina, which is good, but I also got a notification by email from the Canal and River Trust. In fact, I had quite a few. The first notification was about the River Soar, to say that from King's Lock, which is the other side of Leicester, to Red Hill floodgates, which are just down the road here, the whole section had gone into the yellow. So it's kind of like an amber yellow warning to say that things are deteriorating, and they were advising people, particularly in unpowered craft, not to attempt to use the waterway. Once it goes into the red, then that means that really it's not open at all to anybody to move around. And if you do, then you do so really at your own risk. And you will find that if anything nasty happens, then you might find that your insurance is invalidated because you've gone against the Waterways Authority's advice. So there is another part of the Canal and River Trust which just concentrates on the water levels. I've got a little bit of their website listed separately on my phone, so I can get to it quite quickly. And this just concerns the water levels, water level and strong stream warnings. And here they are, and they show that there are certain parts of the network that are in the green, but there are many that are now in the red. And this changes quite quickly and often, because the readings that have been taken to form these views are taken quite often, and some of them are done automatically. So it doesn't list all of the waterways, but it lists the ones that maybe have the most trouble with flooding, and one of those is the Upper Trent, which I'm sitting on. This is all part of the Upper Trent, really. From Sawley Marina there are really 4 routes that I can take. If I turn left out of the marina, I can go onto the Upper Trent and then go off onto the Trent and Mersey Canal. And once on the Trent and Mersey Canal, that gives me access to a vast amount of the canal network. If I turn right out of the marina onto the Upper Trent, once I get to Trent Junction, I have 3 routes. I can turn left onto the Erewash Canal, and once upon the Erewash Canal, again, there aren't any problems. Or I can go straight ahead. I can go towards Nottingham on the River Trent, which then takes you on to the Nottingham and Beeston Canal, and then back onto the River Trent. So that can be a problem if the river levels are high, because there are floodgates at Cranfleet which help to protect Beeston and that area. And then I can turn right, and that takes me onto the River Soar, and this is where there are floodgates at Redhill. The River Soar, as we saw on our journey down to Crick Marina, sometimes you're on the river and other bits you're onto canal and cuts and that kind of thing. So it's in and out of fast flowing water. So that's why the whole section would have been affected, because the canalised parts are sort of isolated between river parts. So it's a difficult one, that one. So that is one of the problems of being in a marina which is just off of a cut, which is then surrounded by river. You have to accept the fact that there may be occasions when you're not able to take the boat out because floodgates are closed and river levels are too high and the water is flowing particularly fast. I think that's the main difference between being on a river system to a canal system, where in a canal system the water levels are maintained artificially. I do remember a few months ago when I was out on the boat and I'd taken it down the River Trent and was about to go on to the Cranfleet Cut. And there were two people walking along, two ladies, and one of them said to the other, "Oh, that is the swamp duck." So obviously they recognised the boat, maybe they followed the channel, I don't know. But she said, that's Alan, and he loves that boat. I thought about that comment quite a bit, really. I think I'm quite fortunate that this boat shows signs that it has been loved over its almost 50 years. It becomes 50 years old next year, 2023, and for most of its time it's obviously been owned by people who have put a little bit of love into it. I noticed when I started to do some of the renovations, it caused me to delve into the depths of the boat here, and I found one or two pieces of evidence that at some stage it has obviously been used by a family, because I found sort of children's toys and things and life jackets that were obviously bought for children rather than adults. Came across some more ducks, more than the ones that were originally on the roof, which now sit on the side here. I didn't throw them out, I couldn't bear it. But there were one or two things that I found that obviously pointed to the fact that it had been used by a family. In particular, it was actually kitted out to have two berths. Although it's only 18 foot, it got basically two double beds. So it got the one here in the cuddy, which can be made up, and it had boards out there which could be put in place to create a double bed space out there. So I guess, it probably was the holiday boat for a family of four, which is often the case with these small cruisers. I've still got those boards, I've kept them, and I've got one still there, which is at the back of the boat, so that if ever I needed it, I could actually put one across there and just lounge around on the back of the boat there, on the deck. Haven't done it. Haven't done it yet. I've never had time, but there's a possibility there. So that was why how I discovered that it had obviously been used by a family. And I know when I bought the boat, it had been bought by a lady who'd only had it for about 12 months. I think she'd bought it from a friend or a friend of a friend, and it hadn't really been out very much. She took it out once, and I think she was a little bit terrified of it, so it never got used. But in that time, it did still get a bit of love because she had the engine fixed. She spent quite a lot of money actually having the engine virtually rebuilt. When I bought the boat, she did show me the bill, which was quite a recent one, and there was a long list of repairs that had been done to the engine. So in that sense, she had looked after it, even though she hadn't really used it. She did love it because what she did with it was to use it as really somewhere for her to walk to. She only lived just in one of the villages. She would walk to the boat and she'd spend a day on it, I think, just sitting in the marina, reading a book, making a cup of tea, and just using it as a space to relax. I think she had a dog, so she would bring the dog with her and they'd just sit out there and watch the ducks and watch the world go by. So it was loved in that sense. It's just that because she hadn't used it, then when it's been sitting for a while, it starts to get a bit grubby and a bit cobwebby. And if you're not using it, then you don't really have the need to do much about that. And she was probably unaware of some of the issues that were going on in the roof, because there were substantial leakages happening in the roof due to the handrails that were well rotten, and the fact that somebody had just gone mad with a screwdriver and put all sorts of holes in the roof which had to be repaired. And she was probably unaware of the state of the electrics, which were absolutely horrific, just an absolute nightmare. And I ended up just completely ripping the whole thing out because it was just unsafe. There was just domestic wire mixed in with 12 volt wire. It just wasn't good, so that had to all come out. So it was loved in that sense, that she loved coming to the boat, and I think she was a little bit upset about having to part with it, but I think that she knew that she wasn't using it and getting the best out of it, and was probably paying a fair amount of money to keep it in the marina. So that's how I ended up buying it from her. And I would say, yeah, it has been loved over the last 3 years or so since I had it. I've certainly spent an awful lot of time here. There are often comments about the amount of time that I spend here, but I do love it. I do actually love being on the boat. It's not so much the time that I spend renovating it, although that has been enjoyable mostly. But it's actually when you're out on the boat. I've got a Christmas song coming up next week, and in that song it talks about moments of serenity, and I think for me that is the key to why I love being on the boat. It's the moments of serenity, and if I can explain what I mean by that, it's when you're out on the boat and there's maybe not many people around. It can be just a nice day, sun shining, It's just you, the river or the canal, some ducks, swans, and the sun shining, and you haven't really got much of a care in the world. And because you're only travelling between 2 or 3 miles an hour, 4 miles an hour, at most 8 at most 8, it's not a fast pace, and so you can really just chill out. And those moments of serenity, they are to be cherished, especially in today's world, when in the UK in particular, these last few months have been horrendous. If you turn on the news, the politics just gets very depressing. So it is nice just to be able to escape all of that. When we were in lockdown, and we were able to actually have those little bits of a break in between the lockdowns and get out, those really were very precious moments indeed, and it made you appreciate what you've actually got here and to make use of it. One thing I do struggle to understand sometimes is why there are so many boats in these marinas that quite honestly never move, never go out. And it's the same with my caravan. I have my caravan in storage, and the caravan near to it has never moved, and yet they must be still paying the ground rent for it. Just seems horrendous really that they would do that, when there must be a lot of people that would love to have a go at it. Maybe don't have the chance, but it does make you appreciate it. So there are lots of these moments of serenity, and I think particularly when we were going down the River Soar this summer, and we got past Loughborough, and we went through Sileby Mill, and there was a stretch of the River Soar there, no towpath because it was a river section, so there was hardly anybody to be seen, and we were just there amongst all this beautiful scenery, and it really was, that was a moment, a moment to cherish, really was.
Close your eyes, hear the voice within, calling this heavy load got under your skin. All in, you got the white knuckles holding on it tight, keeping your feelings bottled up inside, heading for collision in the night. To really live, you gotta die. Breathe in, breathe out. Hey, come alive. Breathe in, breathe out. Look at the colors, colors, colors. Right. got the white knuckles holding on it tight, keeping your fears bottled up inside, heading for collision in the night. To really live, you gotta die.
And there have been lots of those moments, so I've just been having a quick look through some of the perhaps more recent videos that I've made, see if I can spot some of these cherished moments of serenity. So although it's been a fairly wet period of time, today the sun is out and the river and water levels are going down, and I noticed today that I would be able to take the swamp duck out. But just sitting here in the marina is relaxing enough, and I can identify with that lady who I bought the boat from, just to come out here and just sit and read a book. We now have the advantage in the marina that they've just opened a little cafe, so that's something else you can do and go and talk to other people and chat, which is another bonus. So that's something I'm going to do in a few moments time. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. A little bit more of a reflection of things rather than rushing around filming, but just time to sit back and appreciate what I've actually got here.